You're listening to the Flex Success podcast, where we teach you how to be less shit.
I'm your co-host Lizzy, and this is Dean. We'll be covering all topics relating to health, fitness, and bodybuilding.
Join us as we use our in the trenches experience and up-to-date science to provide you with information that you can actually use.
If you like what we do, be sure to give us a like, follow, share, and tag us on social media. We are back with Dr. Nick. We did a replay in the last episode, and it is now episode 125, I believe. We decided to get him back on because this big brain is so juicy and full of stuff that we need and want to hear.
It's jugoso.
It is, which means juicy in Spanish for those that don't speak Spanish. Nick, welcome back.
Hey, thank you. I don't know if I'd agree with the big juicy brain thing.
No?
It's probably just very specific stuff. Sort of one little bit of my brain. Everything else sucks.
Well, that little bit is what we want to know about.
It's like a truffle, like it's been refined over time and people are looking for it. And then when they find it, they're like, whoa, this is pretty good.
Okay. All right.
Truffle brain.
Just one piece. Yeah.
Okay. Now, Nick, when we had you on last time, it was, can you believe, 2019, such a long time ago. And since then, I know you've been a busy man with being a chiropractor, owning a practice, having a kid, getting married, all sorts of crazy stuff. Can you give us a quick overview? Maybe for those, let's start here. For those that didn't listen to the previous episode, who are you? What do you do? And why do you do it?
Sure. Thank you. Yeah, my name's Nick Papastamatis. I'm by qualification a chiropractor. I suppose what I do on a day-to-day basis is I inspire and empower people. And that's either going to be my patients, my team, or people that I coach that are clinic owners, or as many people as I possibly can. And so I do that on a daily basis. And I've got two businesses, the clinics. I've got 3 clinics in Sydney, in Belrose, in Norwest, and in Penrith. And we've got a really distinct formula on how to find the cause of what's going on. And I know that that's been a lot of our history, guys. It's been a lot about cause finding, not necessarily just symptom. And the coaching business that I coach clinic owners to just, I don't know, feel like they have a bit more of a grapple on what they're doing day to day, because business is not the same as the technical chiro physio stuff. So yeah, they're the 2 things that I do, and I do them all the time, and I love them a lot. Yeah. Great.
And
apart from that, personally married, my daughter's almost 2, and yeah, which is nuts, right? Her vocab is ridiculous. Like she's asking, like she's not even 2 yet, and she's stringing sentences like, "What you doing over there, Daddy?"
Yeah.
Which is pretty cute, hey, and just blows my mind. So yeah, life's good.
Great. I hope at some stage that Dean and I can speak Spanish as well as your daughter speaks English.
Yeah, I couldn't ask you that question in Spanish.
Well, ¿qué tal? But we're trying as hard as
papa?
I think you just said potato.
Papa.
It's papa. You said, "What's up, potato?"
I think that's
That's so funny.
My last name sounds like potato.
Nick, since we spoke to you last, you were at the time, and you still are balls deep in the industry. And I'm curious to know from your perspective, we still have gravity, people are still in pain. There's still a lot of things that are the same. But what, from your lens, has changed?
We're far less mechanical. We've delved very, very deep into the psychological side of things, the nervous system function side of things, understanding the neuroendocrine system and how that impacts health, well-being. We're very, very focused on longevity, not just performance. We want both. And we've also, since 5 years ago, we've gone through a very, very significant global event, which isolated lots of people and then ultimately making people realize how important their health is. And so I think that's where the longevity piece came from. And I think that mental health has been an enormous shift. I've never heard so many of my patients say that they see a psychologist on a regular basis. I'm very proud of that. I think that that's wonderful. The seeing a psych conversation is no longer awkward. It's now a little bit more like just dinner talk. And maybe for me, but maybe not for everyone, but it definitely is for me. I think that we're getting better at inquiring about people's mental health, asking better questions around how people are coping with their lives. And I think that ties in with the narrative that people spin about everything that's happening to them, including pain and injury. And so a huge focus has been on less biomechanics, less tissue-based stuff, more, I suppose, more of a well-rounded approach towards involving psychology.
So you have patients coming in, just correct me if I'm wrong, I want to make sure I'm understanding correctly, that are saying like, hey, I have this pain in my shoulder and it makes me feel this way and it impacts my life like this, instead of just saying I have this pain in my shoulder. Is that kind of how it's presented?
That requires some coaching.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, that requires some coaching. So patients aren't, I'm noticing that patients, that's an interesting point actually. Where this goes, right? Usually patients will present to me, I have pain, right? That's usually where people start. But the first step after that is to differentiate between pain and stimulus, meaning the pain is the interpreted threat of a stimulus, i.e. if I get this pencil and jam it into my wrist, that's not painful, but it is a stimulus. I can keep going. It's a stimulus. The stimulus is sharp. It's about a 2 out of 10, but I can put that pencil in a little bit deeper and just waiting. That's now, maybe a 4.
Okay.
It's not painful yet though, is it?
I'll allow you to stop.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
At some point, that sharp stimulus becomes painful, but it's still sharp. And there is a difference between a sharp stimulus that's not painful and a sharp stimulus that is, but pain is not the stimulus. Pain is the interpretation, depending on the severity or threat. So step 1 is taking a patient from saying, I'm in pain, to, okay, what is the symptom? And then allowing them to I suppose, scope their experience a little bit around times where it's been less severe or more severe. Some patients really, really struggle with this. They say it just hurts, or it's just so frustrating. It's like, no, you're really just describing the experience now.
Yeah, right.
So helping them identify the stimulus is crucial.
Okay.
So to draw back to what you're saying has changed then, maybe 5 years ago as a practitioner, person comes in with pain, the first steps would have been, okay, like, let's just say shoulder pain. If you raise your arm here and do this and this, does it cause more pain, less pain? Like very mechanical. Whereas now it might be, tell me a time that the last time you experienced this being a 3 out of 10, to try and determine whether or not there's something else going on.
Or describing the pain. Is it sharp? Is it fuzzy? Is it pulsing? Is it something like that?
Yes, pretty much, guys, pretty much. However, and this is where it does get a little gray, depending on the person's primary narrative about the cause of their pain. So if the patient is really confused about their experience, they're like, I can't tell you why it's worse today or not. I can't tell you why yesterday was better. I'm not going to ask things like, okay, what makes it worse? I'm telling you that some days it hurts, some days it doesn't. I can't tell you why. So what is the point then of asking questions about pattern when there isn't a perceived pattern for the patient? It still is important to try and identify what the pattern is. But if I notice that the primary driver of the pain is central, then I'm going to start talking about that. But if I'm noticing what the primary driver is, there's a clear pattern and you can hear it in the history, then I'm going to go towards mechanical, but I'm going to infuse both always.
Right. And so this is something that you're teaching to the practitioners that work under your umbrella?
Absolutely.
Do you find
Absolutely.
that it's
And that's,
something
look,
that comes naturally for
no.
practitioners? No. Okay.
No, no. So this is the ongoing battle, and that's the helping practitioners have good psychological coaching based conversations with patients. That's where the goal is. That's where like, I've been obsessing basically over the types of conversations, personality. I think I mentioned personality stuff last time 5 years ago. Like, I've literally been thinking and like, there's been about 3 or 4 years of constant analysis before I even started studying to make me want to study. It's like, this has been a 10-year project for me, really. To be thinking about how do I get, okay, two people, same problem, same communication, one gets better, one doesn't. Why? Oh, fucking me. That's why. Because I didn't mold. So, yeah.
These are the same kinds of, I don't know, questions, issues that we run up against within the coaching space. Obviously, you're in the chiropractic space, we're in the online coaching space. And there's so many coaches that will, sit a client in front of them and say, okay, what's the problem? They're like, oh, I have pain, but the pain is that I feel excluded from my social group because I'm fat, therefore I want to lose weight. And the coach is like, copy and paste diet, here you go.
Easy.
Easy, done. Calorie deficit. But they're not actually asking the real questions. They're not digging deeper. They're not figuring out what is going to work. Where is the problem coming from? What does their solution actually need to be? It's not that they didn't have my magical diet 10 minutes ago and now that they do, problem solved. It's deeper. So this is like, it's actually quite transferable to online coaching, what you're talking about.
I find that really interesting. Yeah. Like, look, obviously this is what you guys do amazes me, because, it really does come down to, okay, the simple solution is to put them in a calorie deficit, right? Okay, I feel excluded because I don't look the way I want to look, or I don't feel like I fit in. Lose the weight then. But it doesn't work like that, does it?
No, and
there's got to be a way.
No, but neither does the simple implementation of the mathematical equation, or in this instance, like the mechanical approach, because the mechanical approach works if they follow it.
Do
right?
the rehab, yeah.
But like most of my
diet.
discussions, even on a prep front with people that are highly motivated, is still centered around like, how do we make this process like less restricted, have less resistance,
more enjoyable,
management of stress a bit better. And it's all about the model around the mechanics, I guess you could say, like, and that's where the success lies, man.
When we think about the like a synapse in the communication between two nerves, we need to see a particular molecule with a particular binder. It needs to be specific lock and key mechanism, right? I look at so for example, if that particular person has come to you with it's largely an irrational, perceivable, biased opinion that they have about themselves with their social group, and it's also coated with a large degree of emotion, and with that emotion there's therefore social consequences. There's the fear of isolation that we have inborn in us, right? And if the solution isn't primarily dosed with an antidote for that, you can give them, as long as they're fueled by wanting to remove this and a desire to remove this feeling that they have, they'll follow any diet. It's just got to be fueled. The lock and key mechanism is the emotion. It's to harness what it is that they feel and use that as the driver, not necessarily the numbers. So one thing I find really interesting is being at when do people shift from being hyper emotional to then being super rational about exactly what their decision is going to be. And I just don't think it happens. I think people are driven emotionally, they'll act emotionally.
I'm not necessarily disagreeing with you, but I'm not sure if I agree that emotional people can't ever become less emotional and make more. I don't know.
I suppose it would depend, to come back to even the start of this conversation. We said, like, we're talking about like trying to find cause versus just treating the symptom. Is like, where does the emotion come from? Like, if you could say that somebody is, you know, genetically predisposed to being emotional from the get-go versus having trauma that has driven emotion, maybe you could work on the trauma and therefore change the emotion. But
there's more nuance as well.
For sure. Yeah.
I suppose people who have a really hard time with self-control around food might feel like, oh, I'm so emotional, I can't help it, I eat my feelings, I soothe loneliness or anger or whatever with food. There are definitely, and there's so many cases to show that people actually can, with, you know, removals of restriction, better routines, find ways to make eating better much easier, where they don't have to rely on willpower and they're not having these big emotional swings, or even learning acceptance, that you can feel strong emotions and you can accept them without acting on them. And it's quite a difficult
100%.
skill to learn, but I do believe that it is a skill. It's not like a talent. It's not something that we're born with. It's something that we can develop.
So what I'm interpreting there is you're doing one of two things. You're either helping them to not make nutritional choices the reaction to their emotions, or you're getting them to address the emotions.
Los dos, the both. Let me say it in Spanish. Yeah, both of them, for sure.
Yeah, and so really, it just like you know. And before, when we're talking about you can give them any diet. Well, if they're not reacting nutritionally with their nutritional choices to the way that they are feeling, if we couple less favorable nutritional choices, less helpful nutritional choices with the consequence of the feeling they don't want, chocolate equals sadness. Then slowly, with repetition, they might actually start to feel that as soon as I make this choice, that equals sadness.
Kind of like Pavlov's dog. You mean like they have some affiliation with a feeling and a food, and champagne or birthday cake equals celebration.
Yes.
Well, I mean, dude, that one's massive in nutrition. Before, like, you just say, look, what's happening? It's my birthday this weekend. And I'm like, and what was okay?
I'm going on a holiday,
like,
so I'm going to drink on the plane.
That means I have 10 a.m. drinking on a plane because it's a holiday. Like, this is apparently just what you do, you know? Like, like, it's such an interesting thing where an association with an event to a food group or a food approach or a food behavior is just, it eradicates all other like typically accepted behaviors. It's really interesting. But
like, why can't comfort food be food that actually does make you feel good, like a nutritionally healthy meal?
Right.
Versus comfort food is literally things that will make you feel worse. Is outrageous.
Or why can't we just eat like sensible portions of calorie dense, low nutrient foods all the time, but we just have small portions and we only eat them when we really, really feel like it, not just when it's there because, like, you know, there's so much gray area between the black and the white, the good and the bad. And I just think people don't really embrace the nuance, for sure.
Yeah.
I suppose it's this stuff that I suppose as a profession we're stepping into a little more, realizing that people don't act based on you know, someone that's got lower back pain. Like I said, it's the two patients that have the same condition. Like, why does one get better, one doesn't? It's because with one I engaged them in this realm a little better, and the other one felt disconnected. And it's as simple as that. And the better we can connect with our patients on emotional and at a beliefs level, the better we're going to be able to harness exactly what their motivator is and get the change. It might be slower, but they'll actually do it versus the fastest that they won't do.
I imagine the approach you're taking here would be more difficult for you as the practitioner because it takes a lot of effort, understanding patience,
listening,
you
yeah,
know,
interpreting
versus just saying, oh yeah, look, check out this mad test, you know, like, and then because instant gratification is such a massive thing in today's society, right? Like we as humans haven't evolved that much in the last 100 years, but the society in which we live in has evolved tremendously.
We still want path to the least resistance.
Yeah.
Like, you know, wear this back brace, done, fixed,
yeah, you know, take
cured.
this red pill,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
jab this drug once a week. I mean, it's pretty good, this drug, but still there's some other issues we need to talk about, you know.
And so, because there's so much to consider and so much individual nuance, how are you feeling about I guess the slew of online advice that people are giving around injuries and rehab, perhaps a lot of people outside of their scope of practice? Are you finding that like it's a net benefit, or do you feel like people should stay in their lane a bit more, not talk on social media as much about general things that are quite on specific issues?
Yeah, bloody great. So yeah, this freedom of speech thing of like I can express myself and blah blah blah. It's like, mate, honestly, if you've got me, imagine me giving advice on whether they should take TB 500 or fucking BPC. Like, I don't know. and you know, just because a lot of my patients are on either of them or both, and they've got great results, doesn't make me an advocate for either one or both. It also doesn't make me a detractor. I'm unopinionated about it, except just an observer. That doesn't make me, that doesn't warrant me giving my 2 cents worth about it. If anything, I'm very curious about it, but I'm far from an expert. Now, also from a strength and conditioning point of view. Now, there is a certain element of crossover here where, you know, patients that come in, generally speaking, if they've got a gradually developed issue that has been occurring with a particular movement over a period of time, it's like, I've been gradually doing less and less deadlift. I know that there is probably some sort of strength endurance issue somewhere, right? So there is an element of strength and conditioning in what I do. However, I'm not going to start giving advice about strength endurance online because that's not what I do. Now, I mean, I could, but I prefer to just stick to the way that strength and conditioning affects patients. The way that, even if it was, you know, when we're talking about peptides, the way that that affects patients. It's about my experience with patients. Now, I see a lot of crossover with coaches trying to give advice, not necessarily advice directly, but talking a lot about pain. So when coaches and PTs use that word, they are now not equipped to deal with the consequences of what happens if you fuck this up, mate. Mm. And so the same reason why I tend not to give dietary advice, because I don't know what to do if it fucks up.
Yeah. Yeah. And I guess there's a difference between saying we should be active every day. We should eat, you know, we should follow government guidelines, more or less, asterisks, unless you have a disease or something like that, to saying, you know, giving very specific, nuanced advice to people that you've never even met, you don't even understand their issues. So yeah, like I feel like what I'm seeing on my feed is coaches speaking outside of their scope of practice, giving specific advice when they shouldn't. And I guess I was wondering if that was your experience as well. And it sounds like it is.
It is. Yeah, it is. Yeah. And, you know, the patients also tell me stuff. And, you know, like this is what I don't care about. I don't care if, as a coach, you think that you can prescribe good rehab. Number one, I don't care if you know how to crack someone's back. Like, I know how to train someone. I just sit there and count their reps and watch their movement. Cool, right? See how that could be potentially offensive, and I hope it is. Yeah. It's equally as offensive. Yeah. It's equally as offensive when I've got someone giving out rehab and they have no fucking idea what they're doing. Like, what rep scheme are you using for what? for what premise are you on? What premise are you giving that rehab out? Why have you chosen 10 reps? Is it to build tolerance? Have you been managing? Do you understand the nature of their pain? Is it chronic? Is it tendonitis? Is it tendinopathy?
Did you even diagnose?
Is it function?
Yeah.
Did you even diagnose it? Where is it? Like there's just 1,000 other questions that I could be asking. Like if you're a coach or a PT that is dealing with a client that is in pain, you got to do better than just give workarounds or give rehab that you were given once. That it requires an understanding that's just a different realm. The same way that I wouldn't write a strength and conditioning program for someone.
You nailed a conversation that I had with a client just recently. Was that he has some ongoing shoulder pain. I'm like, man, like, so what's the diagnosis? And he's like, well, I've just always had this pain. I'm like, but okay, so like you've done, and this guy is very, very studious.
Always
very, very like on every details. He's like, I'm going to do 45 minutes of these rehab exercises 7 days a week if it means it'll get me better. Like he's on. And then I got to it, I was like, hang on, so you've had this problem for like 2, 3, 4, 5 years. You've never actually, like, you've tried everything, nothing's worked, but then you've never had any diagnostic scans done to assess whether or not there's something like within there that you're missing. And he was like, well, no, they just said like, if it ever got to it, you do them scans just prior to surgery, just to see what we're dealing with. And I was like, oh, okay. But the point that I was going to get to at the end was like, all right, so we have no diagnosis. I'm not really sure what the issue is.
He's learned to live with it.
And then I was like, look, I have done the following with some success for a very specific issue that I had. You have some similar symptoms to me. You can try this, but you need to go and see this person. Like I would never say, you should just go do butt burgers 12, man. Like that's the shoulder cure, like, because it worked for me. So it must work for you,
Yeah.
Look, that's exactly right. And look, there's a lot of research around the nocebo effect of MRI, that it makes people far more, it's a touch and go when patients ask me, hey, should I get an MRI? I mean, if it had no potential for a nocebo effect, and for a nocebo effect being a non-specific detrimental effect, mainly psychological, if there wasn't that risk, I would do it. In some cases, however, there is a placebo effect where they get the MRI and they realize that it's very, very minor, and they do get better. And when I say do get better, they seem to improve.
Feel better.
When we talk about it, they don't say that, but they're like, yeah, it's actually all right. It's just very coincidental that it's very shortly following an MRI. But I've definitely had an MRI come back. There was this one guy who had what we call a spondy, and his was basically it's a stress fracture of the lower part of the vertebrae, which creates a little bit of slippage of the vertebrae, usually L4-5 in younger people, where L5 just starts to slip forward a touch. And you basically, like, he saw the scan. He wanted me to take him through the scan. He saw his vertebrae slipping forward, or it was slipped forward. Now, a lot of these cases aren't unstable. They're not, that vertebrae is not flipping and flopping everywhere. It's pretty strong. It's just anteriorly displaced. And it took me, that particular scenario probably took me about a year. And the reason why it took me a year was because he couldn't get out of his head that his vertebrae is anteriorly displaced, and he fucking saw it. Right? Now, I could have refused. Oh, man, what am I going to do if I refuse? How am I supposed to refuse that? No, I want to see the scan. So, no, I'm not going to show you. How about for losing buy-in? Like, what's worse?
Where do you sit on this? I think this is sort of where you've drawn to before. I don't know if it was a personal conversation with you and I about a client of mine, or if it was, I've seen it like publicly, but this centrally mediated pain concept, where it comes more so from within your thoughts, let's just say, than it does from the actual problem. And then whether or not, like, I think to tease this out a little bit would be, someone has an issue, but we're not really sure what it is. They get a scan and they could have had bulging discs or torn discs or you know, you name it, that was asymptomatic for 5 years, 6 years, 7 years, but now that they've seen it, that produces ongoing or even additional issues? Where do you sit on that? Like, do you talk to them about the potential for asymptomatic injuries being present, or do you just let it happen and see? Or
Absolutely preempt. It's, there's a couple of things I say to especially the chronic pain, people that have had long-term injury or long-term symptoms in an area. This may very well come back clear. This will potentially be more confusing than it will be providing clarity. Are you comfortable with that? And then I'll be like, I suppose we've got to give it a go. Okay. Almost certainly, guys, when it does come back clear, they're like, it's clear. What the fuck? I'm like, I fucking told you this could be clear. It's all good. That's okay. We are still confused, but at least we know there's nothing damaged. And they're like, actually, you know what? That's good to know. Yes, it is good to know. Now let's get on to identifying why exactly you have the pain. So there are two signals. Well, there are multiple, but the two main ones is there's a signal that goes straight from the tissue damage or the tissue lesion or the sensitized tissue, goes from there to the spinal cord. And then from the spinal cord, it goes up to the brain. From the brain, it goes into multiple directions all at the same time. And pretty much what we're trying to do is, like, for example, if you've had a hammy tear, you're going to be receiving signals from the hammy to the spinal cord, and then the spinal cord transmitting to the brain pain or signal. But the hammy tear, let's say, for example, has healed now. Why do I still have pain there? This happens with a lot of chronic ankle injuries, chronic shoulder pain. The tissue has healed. I still have pain. Why? And usually it's because there hasn't been they haven't overcome the problem psychologically, or at least neuropsychologically. We haven't overcome the connection between the signal and the pain experience.
And so
that could be because we haven't identified, we haven't changed. Well, there's a few reasons. To cut through, it comes down to communication. So if you can communicate to the patient about the pain, they get to know the pain, they understand what the aggravators are, you've helped them identify that they're improving in frequency, in intensity, and you've between the experience of pain and just making it more objective. And they're just noticing all the evidence of their symptoms are going down, 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 until it's just not noticeable anymore. These have generally a pretty good recovery. But people that don't have a good recovery to pain, that, I've had back pain for as long as I can remember, they haven't done well articulating the differences of, or the reasons why their back gets worse. For example, I've got back pain today and I don't tomorrow. Why? Whereas a lot of people just accept that the pain is there and is a normal part of their life. And if, as soon as it becomes integrated as normal, it is extremely difficult to get rid of. There's a large degree. So I use a lot of questionnaires now to help them quantify or take a snapshot in an objective way, black and white, ticks on a piece of paper, what they wrote, at a particular date. And then when they say, Nick, you know what, it's still the same. And then we just say, do this questionnaire. And they'll have a very hard time remembering it. And then they realize that they're better. It's an evidence gathering process for them to realize that their pain doesn't influence or impact them as much as it used to. That must mean insert narrative here. And so as soon as they realize that their pain actually, or their problem doesn't really impact their life anymore, they actually stop feeling it, because it becomes like the fridge, just background noise, and you just don't notice it.
How interesting. Yeah, because I guess when you're talking about back pain like that people just live with, they wouldn't have just woken up one morning and all of a sudden they have this back pain, or your client had the shoulder pain or something. It's little by little, a little becomes a lot. And a lot, slowly. Like if someone's trying to lose 20 kilos, it doesn't happen. You don't wake up in the morning and you're like, oh, look at my six pack. Like it happens so slowly, and it's so common for people to be like, it's not working. I'm not really losing weight. And then you compare photos from 6 weeks ago and you're like, holy shit, like look at that difference. But it just happens over time, and it's hard to notice the corrosion or the opposite.
Well, this is sort of like the be do have model too, though, a little bit. In that a lot of people like that have long-term chronic pain, they aren't just I am Dean and I have back pain. I am Dean with back pain, you know?
Okay.
Like I had a friend,
yeah.
I am Hoggy and I am always in pain, you know?
Okay. It was part of his identity.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Yeah.
Like there's this association with them. They can't detach. And just quick little story time, because I said this in the last podcast, Nick, with you, and I'm going to say it again, so it sounds like a broken record. You and your pontification, just bringing up thoughts around, fuck, this is me. In every prep, I've had back pain since I was probably 27, right? On and off. But within every prep I've ever done, pain goes away because my focus goes in on performance is a must, this is a must, tick the boxes. And I don't ever have back pain.
You're also lighter.
Yeah, but I don't ever have back pain in a prep.
Okay.
And then whenever I'm just living life normally, I'm like, it comes and goes depending on moods, how much I've sat, and a few other things. So there's some physical considerations, surely. But yeah, I just
you're happiest when you prep.
I'm like, man, I forget. I like kind of forget about it. Like, I can't afford.
Is that right?
I can't afford for it to impact my prep, right? So I don't allow the pain to exist almost, and it goes away. It does every time.
So here's another bit of pontification for you. What are some outside of dietary and outside of training habits that you incorporate when you're prepping? Like
honestly, we live the same life, but he just turns the dial up. What do you say?
I would, my biggest thing would probably be, I won't skirt on some exercises that I know are a little bit more challenging, that I know will keep me a little bit healthier. So maybe from a movement, perspective, like I'll do some stuff that might be like open chain and whatnot. Whereas now I might be like, you know what, I've just got to get 6 sets of chest done. So I'll just go sit in the machine and bang that out, like, whereas before I may have carried some dumbbells, but no, otherwise, man, my life nowadays, and actually, to be fair, way less consistent back discomfort. I wouldn't even call it pain these days, unless I do something silly. My life is pretty set up like prep, just with more food. So it's all,
okay.
Where
I'd be drawn, so this is where when I hear stories like that, I divide the person into quadrants: physical, biochemical, psychological, or spiritual. So when I hear back pain, or when I hear hip pain, or when I hear stuff like that, like lower areas, I'm starting to think base chakra. How grounded is this person? Is there sunlight? Are they breathing well? Are they stressed? Is there something happening relationally? Is their family okay? Are they okay? How are they emotionally? This is where I start to go. Or if someone comes to me with this chronic neck pain, I'll be like, how's your anger? or are you withholding, or are you withholding something, Yeah,
so I'm cracking up laughing because I'm the angriest person on earth and I always have neck pain. No one's angrier than me, Nick. I'm furious. Mm-hmm.
So neck pain seems to, I just got to be careful not to say it does. It seems to coincide when you're suppressing what the heart wants to say and you're catching it in the throat. And this,
I've told more people to fuck off recently, so my neck pain's getting better. I no longer hold it in as mumuch as I used to, but there's still a lot of people I want to chew out. So pick up your phone, everyone, if I call you.
I thought you were going to say, Nick, I'm about to call you.
No.
Yeah. But it's not uncommon. It's not uncommon for people to be, these days, for a lot of my patients to be pretty much crying because the pain experience is reminding them of emotion that they've suppressed. So
the frog in the throat, the like lifted shoulders when you're angry. Is that what you mean?
Or just unpicking.
Hey,
I was just going to say they're unpicking like maybe the root cause of why they're so tense there, for example. So emotions, here we go. We're going down a rabbit hole. There's a great book called The Molecules of Emotion.
And some of this stuff does enter the realm of the quantum side of things, maybe stuff we haven't proven yet. Take it with a salt. Basically, what emotions are, or I have understood them to be. We've got an area in our brain called the limbic system. Now, the limbic system is a synthesizing processing unit. The molecules of emotion are actually molecules. They're actually molecules that vibrate at a certain frequency throughout your body. And each emotion is a blueprint, or a blueprint of a cocktail and a sequence of that molecule being in your body at various places at the same time, detected by your limbic system, and that therefore gets interpreted as an emotion. It is then up to your forefront, your brain, to then determine how exactly you're going to react to that emotion, and are you going to carry out behavior that is going to replicate that emotion, or can you sit above that emotion, identify it, and then process it and act in accordance with how you wish to act. That's my understanding of emotions, in terms of they are molecules. They are literally in your body. So I know you both vary in emotionality, right? Some are more stable, others are less stable. From a
You didn't want to say more
stable,
erratic.
I shouldn't say stable. I should say some are more neutral, or have a less nuanced rainbow of emotions, and other people just experience more different emotions.
Rainbow and depth.
And so,
I'd say it's true. Like, I'm not insulting either of us, for sure. Dean, I think we're all talking about
a 4-color palette, 3-color palette, maybe. You know, the 3 colors I can see with
his dial goes down one step and up one step. I'm not.
My emotions are the colors of my shirt: white, gray, and black.
Sure, and I'm not the volcano that I used to be. I definitely am emotionally stable, but like you said, there's a spectrum, a rainbow. I feel things more deeply, both the good and the bad. Quick sidestep question, Nick: if you could choose to be either me or Dean when it comes to like emotionality, who would you choose?
Lizzy.
Would you? Oh. Yeah, when things are good, I choose. When things aren't good, I choose Dean.
Because, and I'll tell you why. Because Dean, no, not Dean. That's not fair. But
that's all right. Let's make an example.
It's less personal. It's less personal. But people that are more neutral in their emotional palette, won't experience the highs as high as an emotional person.
Yeah.
But they also won't experience the lows. So if you're looking at it like a wave, you know, people that experience high emotionality just go up and down that wave quite a lot. And it's a big pendulum swing, versus people that are a little bit more neutral in their emotional palette just don't experience really highs or really lows. Like a big celebration is just a notch above neutral, and a loss is just a notch below neutral. And that's really the range. Yeah. Versus it is just a lot harder. It's a lot harder to have lots of emotions, because you have to constantly sit with what you're feeling and identify it, and it's a lot of work. But this is also, people that refuse to do that work end up with anger issues, or that they end up not just anger issues, but it's essentially issues associated with the inability to manage the emotions that they're experiencing.
Anxiety, depression, self-control issues. Yeah. All those things.
That use of the word manage was the winner for me then, because I'm like, high emotion in both directions, managed well, I can see the enjoyment of that.
Yes.
But mismanaged high emotion to me just looks like a volcano that I'd never want to be a part of.
Absolutely.
And, you know, like the grass is like, I don't know how green the grass could be on the other side, because I'm quite happy living on my little mountain of brown grass. Of course you are. So I'll just stay there for now.
It's cool. It's cool. It's a lot easier to manage, Dean. Like it's very easy to manage. You know, there are certain things that also, people that have a low degree of emotionality are just able to stick to a routine without too many. They don't like change too much, but they because it requires them to. But they can very easily get into a new routine without too many distractions. They're not distracted people, generally speaking. But people that experience lots of different emotions will might be doing a particular task that they find complex, which stirs up a particular emotion. And instead of feeling that emotion and understanding that emotion, why am I feeling that right now? I'm feeling that because I feel like a complete loser right now, because I'm not fixing this thing right now that I don't understand how. Instead, they'll grab their phone and disassociate away
Pacify
from that. Yeah, and then that's where avoidance behaviors and procrastination comes in, because but I would say Dean isn't an enormous procrastinator, but I would say Lizzy is probably more likely to procrastinate.
I'm more likely to procrastinate, but I definitely am proud of like the work that I've done spiritually.
So you've really
Right.
dialed in.
I've
honed
like
in your
seen a
approach.
psychologist, read a bunch of books, like done a lot of work on like accepting emotions and identifying them and like figuring out the root causes of things. So I'm definitely, when it comes to, I still feel a lot of things and very deeply, but I have this ability now to kind of detach from it, take a step back and look down on it with curiosity.
Beautiful.
Yeah. And
Beautiful. You're not your feelings. You're not your feelings, and you're not your thoughts.
no. No, and I can't control my feelings and I can't control my thoughts, but I can stop them from controlling me.
Nice.
That on a t-shirt,
Amazing.
Nick.
See, that's someone that's done a lot of work, right? You've done heaps to get there. You've done heaps and heaps and heaps of work. You've had to look straight at the trauma, straight in the eyes. You've had to literally face into your darkest fears to do that. And some people just don't have the courage, right? But these are people that generally just either avoid or react, and that's okay. If you want to keep taking the blue pill for the rest of your life, that's cool. I just can't.
Yeah. No.
So
it was
in the meantime, got to do the work.
And the work sucks. And what's the saying? When you cut out a cancer, it bleeds. And if you don't cut out the cancer, you avoid the small pain for now. Because I know that for me, doing the work was like really fucking actually quite traumatizing. And there was a moment there, like, I don't know if you remember when I first started seeing a psych, I felt like things were getting so much worse. And it was just because I was bringing back like traumatic memories and like revisiting things that I was burying and stuff like that. But, you know, I cut out the cancer. And
yeah,
I wish that for everyone. I really do. Like, it fucking sucks, but then it doesn't.
Yeah, you have to go back there. You have to go back. There is just no way, which, you know, this is what I suppose there is a time for things like mantras and ceremonies and ayahuasca trips. Like that's all great for you to have this new perspective on life, but you don't truly heal unless you face that sensitizing event, you resensitize, re-experience the fuckness, and change your reaction, change the narrative. You have to feel it. If you don't feel it, you don't heal it. That's just,
it has to be true because it rhymes.
Yeah, I made that up just then.
Did you?
Not bad. Yeah.
He's like, damn, maybe that'll be the title.
I'm a poet and a chiropractor.
But see, you know what I just want to call out a little bit hypocritical right now is the fact that I was saying before, stay in your lane, and I'm here talking about psychology.
But you have psychology.
And this is a lane. Oh, well, look, yeah, I do, but I'm not a psychologist, and I've done some study. But the part that I probably want to just call out is this is a scope of practice that I have to be very careful around, because this is where conversations tend to go. And so I've got to have my wits about me around how far am I taking someone so that they realize exactly what's causing their pain, and is the back pain, or is it they're just completely unhappy with themselves? Where's Pandora's box? And at which point do I not have the skills to handle this particular case or person? And it's at that time where I'm like, I don't think I can help you with this part, but let's talk about your back pain. And there's got to be a very quick reframe with a referral. So yeah, I love that stuff. And the fact that I love it doesn't necessarily mean that I'm good at it. And although I've done lots of work on it, It doesn't make me someone that's going to go off and start spruiking this on social media, talking about, you know, heal your ancestral trauma so that you can relieve yourself of the genetic code.
Yeah.
Like, I'm just not going to put that on social. That's not what we do.
Okay.
So I think the passion of something like this is there's a blessing and a curse, because it can go too far. And like you said, even earlier in this podcast, like if you, I'll use poor terminology, but let's just say you made someone break in your clinic emotionally through this discussion, and then you went, uh-oh, I don't know how to fix this, just like the nutritional intervention that you made that you don't know how to fix because you've caused some untoward health consequence, you know. Oh, that's a nerve-wracking moment. But I also think it's important to recognize that, you know, the best practitioners are the ones that typically have the most available tools. Like, so you can kind of be like a specialist at being a generalist, I guess you could say.
Well, one of those tools is having a network of people you can refer to.
But also one of the skills within that generalist sort of understanding is to know when to go too far. Because it's the same for us in our field, man. We have done little mini courses on things, you know,
motivational interviewing,
because it's very important for us to understand that maybe the language we were using prior was actually harmful.
Yeah.
You know, the writing reflex is one that I could put my hand up and say I did it my entire life.
Which is to try and always offer people solutions.
I've got a solution.
Yeah.
Like, let me tell you about it. They're like, I didn't fucking ask you for one. I just wanted to tell you that today was difficult, Dean. Like, oh, okay. Like, you know, so like, but you learn these things so that you can refer. But people need to recognize that a singular skill is not enough if they want to be very good, you know.
No, and you know, like, and there's
No, you go, Nick,
what?
and then I'm going to ask you a question, but you go first.
Oh, right. And you know, there's also a limit to what I can do physically as well. Like, even in my training that, you know, I've been working as a chiro for 13, I don't know, whatever years. There's a limit to what I can do. There is a point I need to send someone to a hospital. You know, there is a point where I need to send someone to a specialist. Like, I can't, just because even with expert level training, I still have a limit. So imagine if you're not an expert, fuck, how limited is that skill? So yeah, I suppose it's the Dunning-Kruger effect with the limited skill peeps.
For sure. And actually, the question that I was going to ask you is kind of relevant to exactly just that. And my question is this: when somebody goes to a chiropractor, they understand that the chiropractor is not a nutritionist. But they expect the chiropractor to crack their back, or whatever their expectations are, right? Obviously, you do more than that. They go to a PT and they expect the PT to do exercise with them. They go to a dietitian, they expect a diet. But when people go to a coach, I feel like people don't quite understand the scope of practice. And there's the expectation from the client side for the coach to be the nutritionist, the chiropractor, the personal trainer, the psychologist, the friend. And so my question to you is, and also maybe the coach also feels the pressure to be all those things as well, because they're like, hey, for the low price of $69 a week, I can give you all of these services. They might feel like that's a good marketing tool. That's obviously not something they should do. But do you feel like it's more of a responsibility for the client to have tempered expectations, or for the coaches to work inside their scope of practice, even though it might kind of harm their marketing?
Oh my God, that is incredible. What a question.
Don't answer it.
Tune into the next episode for the answer.
I feel like that question doesn't even deserve an answer. That's just beyond the answer. I think that was so well put.
Thank you.
It's completely unregulated, right? So the expectations on what a coach does varies from person to person. I suppose, what is coaching? And, you know, it comes down to, well, it depends on what type of coach you're talking about. Are you talking about a health coach, or are you talking about a nutritional coach? Or are you talking about a strength and conditioning coach? I mean, what would I expect of a strength and conditioning coach? I would expect a program and some guidance and some education on how to make better choices. From a nutritional coach, I would probably expect a bit of a plan, an understanding of what my point A is and what my point B needs to look like. and maybe some education about making some better choices. If I'm going to be a health coach or even a chiro, I would expect that I get some chiropractic-based treatment, where that's their back and neck. Usually it's just crack me back. That's all really people want me for. And so I'll give them an adjustment, and I'll also educate them on how to make better choices. Now, ultimately, I've repeated one particular thing. The common theme amongst coaches is we educate people to make better choices. Now, how do we do that? It's by asking them questions to help them scope out the answers that they already fucking have. Oh, how do you lose weight? Eat less, motherfucker. Like, it's not that hard. You already know that, right? Like, you don't need a coach to, like, eat less. You know, if I asked every person who needs to lose weight or is prepping for a comp or whatever, how do you lose weight? They're all going to say the same thing. It's also the same as people that say, you know, I've just had shoulder surgery. Okay, well, what would logic tell you that you need to do? Well, I probably just need to rest it, work on range of motion, don't strain it too much, and gradually do more and more as I heal. That's it, man. Like, there are some nuances, yeah, right? Like, coaching is helping people to unlock what's already inside of them. And I think there is a major issue making coaching a product. It's not. Coaching is the process of the person self-realizing. And I don't think that can be sold in any way specifically. There might be a service and offering. There might be a particular experience around the coaching process. There might be some educational tools that come with the coaching, but that's not the coaching. The coaching is the conversation. So yeah, I think that it's super. Obviously, it's it's completely unregulated worldwide to be a coach. What does that even mean? I think ultimately it gets very heavily misconstrued because we don't understand what a coach is, and ultimately to self-realize.
Yeah. So you think perhaps, like, because it is so misunderstood and deregulated, it's understood on both sides, the coach's side and the client's side. So really the responsibility is on the client to expect less, but also the coach to stay within their scope of practice and not feel pressured by that expectation.
100%. I suppose a lot of people becoming coaches. Well, I'll talk about my sphere, for example. They feel like maybe they've done it for long enough, or they feel like they want to add a revenue stream, so that they decide to just mentor and coach other people to become better at building a practice. Cool. But within that, and, you know, early on in my career, I also had my self-esteem and my self-worth was tied up with my ability to get results for patients. And that's something I had to work through. This might be the same, where coaches might want to justify to themselves that they are a good coach by helping people in realms that they shouldn't be. And I think it's just a lack of self-awareness around, well, what type of coach, how do I help someone? Where's the limit to what I can do to help someone? And at which point am I guiding someone down a path I actually don't know how to take them on? So yeah, I think that there's a lot of self-awareness required to coach effectively and stay in your lane. I think there's also that's with that self-awareness, people probably explore because of a lack of self-worth, or they're trying to justify their own self-worth.
I hadn't thought about it that way. That's an interesting perspective.
Yeah. I mean, I think the client's expectations can be driven by the expectations that the coach provides them to. Do you know what I mean? Like, if like, for example, if a client comes to me and is very unaware of what my expectations are of them, or I don't set the expectations of what they should have of me, then we're probably going to get caught in this constant hamster wheel of them asking me questions that they shouldn't, and me attempting to answering them. And then once I do, then I feel obliged to continue to answer more and more and more. But if I'm very clear as the coach, my coaching is primarily just realistically, like, it's the specific requirement of me is to get people lean enough on stage. But obviously that involves a lot more like management of that individual and their entire system.
Huge
kind of like we're
off-seasons
talking about
and-
today, you know, like, but if my clients didn't know what to expect of me, then they would probably ask additional questions that I can't answer. And then if I answered those questions, I'd feel obliged to continue doing that. So it's probably ultimately up to the coach to set the appropriate expectations.
So you're saying you
100%.
teach people how to
to
teach
treat
you?
me, yeah.
Yeah, and you need to teach them that they can't kind of like lean on you for things that are outside of your scope.
Yeah, because it's important for people to realize that just because you're smart at one thing doesn't mean you're smart at everything.
Right.
Yeah.
That's a scary realization for some people. Like
My professor, one of my professors from university, he joined one of our courses once for
Yeah.
nutrition, and the smartest man I know, my God, that brain. And he was trying to lose weight eating nuts, like 50 to 70% fat foods. Like
it was like keto's the answer, or this
it's
is the
keto,
answer.
it's this,
you
it's
know?
like this fad. No, it's that fad. No, I was like, well, actually, let's like bring it back down to basic principles. And from there, like we can adapt. If you love
Yeah.
eating nuts, fine, but you know, energy balance. And he was like, oh,
Yeah.
so super smart, but just like totally missed the mark on some things. And so just because someone's smart doesn't mean they have the answers to everything.
The most scary situation that I've ever seen, but hilarious at the same time, of somebody thinking that my ability as a bodybuilding coach transfers into other genres was one day I made a joke after I got the COVID shot. This is
Vaccination.
before we left Australia.
Mm.
I put up a picture and just went, just got my vaccine. Now I'm going to get like Hulk level muscle, you know, like making a joke about it. And this person replied, was like, haha, that's funny. Like, I know you'd never do that. And I went, oh no, I actually did. Like, I want to travel, so I'm getting it, you know?
Yeah.
And he went, oh,
Yeah.
I didn't think it was good for you, but if you're going to take it, I might go get it then. And I went, no.
Oh,
No. First of all,
this isn't advice.
get the fuck off Instagram. Second of all,
Yeah.
Read a book.
I'm not the guy to come to for vaccination information.
Oh,
Could you imagine?
what a curly time that was to be a health professional or a professional in the health industry. That was a curly time. I got lots of questions about should I, shouldn't I? Is it bad for me? I'm like, bro, how's your shoulder? Like, whatever. Yeah.
How's your back pain going?
You're like, is your pain associated with a vaccination shot? Then no. Okay, let's not talk about
Although
that.
my shoulder was very sore after my second vaccine. Holy shit.
Mm.
It really
Yeah.
was.
It's a good figure points.
Nick, I want to wrap it up with a couple of questions for you. So we still do something worth sharing. Actually, no, we'll start with a less shit tip.
Mm.
If you could leave listeners with a take-home tip, how could they be less shit? What might that be?
Take home message for people to be it's okay to be shit at the beginning.
Okay.
You're supposed to be. It just don't let your ego get in the way to think that you're supposed to be awesome at the beginning. I suppose if you're going to do anything, you might as well be awesome at it. And to be awesome at something takes time. So, and it almost always requires you to be shit first.
Mm.
So to be less shit, maybe just start by being shit.
I like it. Very practical.
Yeah.
Yeah. As two people new to Spanish, kind of,
Oh.
we can attest to how important it is to being okay with being shit.
I'm learning the skill of resilience. As somebody who has found a lot of things in my life relatively easy to get going and get better at,
it's not this.
it's not it.
No. Yeah, I reckon even when you learn it fluently, Dean, it's still going to be very, very clear that you're a gringo.
It will be.
It'll be very clear. But you're less
Muy
shit.
gringo.
Muy.
Muy gringo.
Your tip for being less shit to be less shit is an important one to remember, because I said this to Liz the other day. Like, when I hear a Spanish speaking native speak English, like
my mum.
an absolute spaz, you know, like I'm like, you're a fucking legend. I can't believe you know so much English. Good on you for trying.
I
But,
know what you're
you
trying
know,
to say.
and I
even
understand
though-
it.
Yeah.
It's fine. I'm like, this is incredible that you can do this.
Yeah.
And then I'm like,
Yeah.
I only know 10 words. I'm so dumb. I don't want to do this anymore. I'm like, hang on a minute. I just encourage
Crazy.
this person to
Yeah,
do the
yeah,
same
yeah.
thing.
Yeah,
Anyway.
it's just nuts. Yes, that's exactly right.
Mm.
Uh,
And do you have something worth sharing with our audience? It might be someone you like on Instagram, a book, I don't know, Netflix series, anything at all?
Yeah, one thing I was going to mention before is this really amazing YouTube clip called "It's Not About the Nail."
Okay.
And I've shared this many times now with patients or with people that I'm coaching, because "It's Not About the Nail" is a great depiction of exactly the difference between the logic versus the irrationality. And it's basically a couple that are arguing about a particular nail that's stuck to this chick's head. And all she can do is talk about the nail. And all he can say is, take the fucking nail out. And she's like, it's not about the nail. It's about how I feel about the nail.
Okay.
So it's a great depiction that would pretty much summarize our conversation, I'd say.
Okay. I've just got it up on a tab here. I'm going to add it to the show notes along with the book that you mentioned, Molecules of Emotion. I'm interested, by the way. I've got 6 credits left sitting there on my audiobook. Yeah. Okay. Would you rather, Nick? Are you ready?
Oh, yep.
I think of these on the spot, and I want to kind of make it relevant. Would you rather have to give up all work that could be even remotely considered within the realms of psych or chiro, and just have to choose a totally new field, or have to spend 2 years of your life away from your daughter before she turns 15?
Oh, man. What the fuck?
Hey, that's
is that an
I'm
easy
giving it
answer?
Up. I can't. Like, I've got to give up the psych and chiro.
2 years before
okay,
she's
1
15.
1 year of your life before she turns 15.
Liz does this every time. She wants you to say, I'm abandoning my daughter, guys. Business is more important.
She has a mother.
It's business before bitches, bro.
As in,
okay, 1 year.
So do I have any contact at all?
No.
It's 1 year before
None.
she's 15, don't forget.
Before she's 15.
Yeah, I think that's an important point.
Well, the problem with it, right? And this is where I'm rationalizing it. So the answer is absolutely not. I can't not see her. The reason why is foundationally, she will now form a narrative that will last for the rest of our lives.
But what if
because I'm absent?
What if it's when she's 14 to 15? That's what I'm saying. If you had to pick a year.
Yeah.
Follow-up question.
You can pick any year.
Follow-up question. You're forced to give up a year of time with your daughter.
What year? What
year are you choosing?
Probably when she's super young.
It's got between 1 and 17.
It can't be. It's got to be when she's a teen. So if I've got to choose until I'm going to wait until she's most cognitively developed. So she's got to be 14.
Okay.
And then
right, done.
Are you shipping her off?
But Nick, I do feel that we make decisions based on our emotions, and then we use logic to justify it. And I think
most definitely
this is what's happened. I don't know.
Because let's just throw a different narrative at you here, Nick. You have no capabilities to then engage in psychological help, psychological education. You can't do chiro. You may end up being a very depressed individual, which you may then take that trauma out on your daughter. So just
you might
1
not be
year,
the best dad.
You could turn into a horrible person.
Well, just a depressed mopey
There's a carryover effect that you may be considered.
So you don't even care.
Guys, my world is ending with this question. I feel like I need to pour myself a whiskey or something now. Like, seriously.
I mean, if you're going on holidays, it's an appropriate time.
I lose either way, okay?
Either way, your daughter's not safe in Nick's hands is what I'm getting from this.
Oh my gosh.
Call the authorities. On Friday night, Dean and I, we have a co-working space around the corner, and there's a pool inside the co-working space because it's amazing. And they threw a pool party, and there's people mostly from Argentina that work there, but there's some people from other countries, and there's 2 twins from England. And I had some cheap white wine in the pool, and
like
we were
the Australian goon wine equivalent.
Oh, like so bad.
It was $1.50 Australian for a litre.
Yeah, it was bad. Yeah, I bought it because it was funny, because it was very Argentinian. Anyways, so if you think this question is bad, I asked them, okay, twins, if your parents had to choose one of you to live and one of you to die, who would they choose to die? So these were the type of questions.
They answered it very quickly.
They did answer it quite quickly.
They were like, they'd probably let me die because he's more of a favorite.
Yeah.
Even though,
wow,
So hang around me long enough and someone's going to cry because I overstep a line.
It's all good. No, I love that line. And you know what? I'm going to be thinking about that all bloody day, I reckon.
The problem, see, the problem with these, Nick, is Liz will ask me a question. I just shoot straight from the hip, unemotional. This is what's happening, you know? And then she's like, but, and I'm like, oh, fuck, I didn't think of that. Like, oh, what about that? Oh, man, no, not that. This is, you ponder on these things. You're like, Jesus, maybe I would give up a year of my time with my daughter. I'm not sure.
To be my best self, you need to work in a field that you're passionate about, you know?
True.
So
yeah, I actually get that point. I'd be quite upset if I couldn't think or function in this realm for a whole year. You started with 2 years. Fuck, that's captivity.
yeah.
You've got to go back to uni and become a mathematician and teach math.
No, I can't. Nah, sorry. Nah, I can't do that.
Anyway,
Nick,
always a great podcast, Nick.
Thank you so much for coming on again.
Thanks for having me, guys.
It's been great to chat and just hurt you psychologically with painful questions. And we hope, I don't know when we'll be in Australia again, but when we do come to Australia, I hope to catch up with you. And for people listening who want to follow along, maybe even check out your clinics, tell us where they can find you and all your clinics.
Yeah. On Instagram is the easiest place, at Balance Health Performance, or at Dr. Nick Pappas. You'll find me. Yeah, that's the easiest place to start. We share all the time.
Too easy.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks so much, Nick.